Hey everyone, welcome to a live build. We are going to build a demo agent for a coffee shop. One of my buddies owns a local coffee shop down the street and has agreed to let me build him an agent as a part of this video. So you will see a real business, real website, real information, and answers to questions that people ask about their shop. I'm going to build him an agent that will ultimately go onto his website. So this video will help you guys see exactly how I think about the prompt that we build, about the knowledge base information that goes into it. He wants to capture information for their loyalty program as well as set appointments for his catering or corporate events that he does as a part of people when they ask and they come into the shop. So I'm going to set up a full agent start to finish. I will explain as much as possible along the way. This will be a longer video, so feel free to skip to the parts that are the most relevant for you, but we're going to try to utilize all of the different parts of the platform today. There are a couple of ways to build this agent when starting out. Option number one is to create a brand new chat agent from scratch that gives you a default prompt that you can then customize according to the use case that you have. My suggestion to you would actually be to go to the marketplace. That is going to give you a really great starting point for a handful of agents that we hear about the most. In this example, I don't have one for a coffee shop. We could argue that a restaurant reservation agent is kind of the closest one for this, but I'm actually going to go ahead and build one from scratch so that you can see here and just go through how I think about building agents for different types of clients in different scenarios. Getting into the platform here, I do want to talk through a couple of different options for what this business does. Now, they are a pretty typical South Florida coffee shop. They do coffee, they do espresso, they do pastries. One thing that is unique to them is they do crepes, so we do want to feature some of that because that is one of the things that they're well known for. I'm going to go ahead and put the name and display name that would show up on the front. I am going to choose the different AI models. You'll notice that there are quite a few. GPT-4o, the one that is selected, is a recommendation. Another one that would be recommended is 4.1. Those are the two most common that we see at the moment. There are other options such as 4.0 mini or 4.1 mini or nano. The difference between those models is the amount of power that is behind the scenes. If we are doing a use case that only requires the agent to answer questions, we can get away with using one of those mini or nano models. If we are collecting information in any way, if we are scheduling appointments through calendars in any way, I would highly recommend either the 4.0 or the 4.1, those full models, because that is the amount of power that's needed to be able to handle those complex functions behind the scenes. You will notice we have an alternative model. This is in the event that OpenAI goes out for whatever reason. Think about the alternative model as kind of your backup generator here. We still want the house to work if OpenAI goes down, so this is why we have Claude and Grok as other alternatives to that. Tags are great for categorizing and organizing your platform. It's not something that's required in order to build any agents. Support email, this would be the client's email. So in this case, I'm going to put his email here. And that way, when the agent runs into an issue of some sort or the client has a question that is asking, it can provide that email to be able to reach out to them in advance. Temperature here, this is the ability to have more deterministic or creative responses. The scale is from 0 to 1. 0 is very deterministic, which basically means that the response will be pretty much the same every time. At a scale of 1, the responses are very creative, which means that you'll still get the answer, but it just might be said in different ways when different people ask them. So I'm a big fan of having it closer to 0. 0.2 to 0.3 is pretty common, but you will get the same or similar results regardless of whether you choose 1, 0.5, or 0, any along that scale. Knowledge base results here, you can leave this as 5 results. That would only be needed for extreme large knowledge base use cases, which for small businesses like coffee shops, roofing companies, real estate companies, that's not necessary in order to edit. This base system prompt here, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of guidelines that are necessary in order to follow. I am going to try to break this down as simple as I can. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and delete everything that was in with the slashes, and then I'm going to talk through these different sentences here that are going to be the most helpful. Number one here is through the basic instructions. We want to ultimately provide the agent some more context. Who is it? What business is it representing? How is it supposed to be responding to people? So we can give it some more context by saying it's a helpful assistant for East Coffee Shop. We can also tell it things like tonality, language that it needs to be spoken in, how short or long the responses need to be. So in this case, I want the agent to respond as, lighthearted but still professional. And so I would say something along the lines of, you are to respond in a lighthearted and professional manner to any clients who ask questions. This gives it some more instruction as to how exactly it should respond, and the more instructions we can provide as a part of it, the better the responses will be. Next sentence here is about what its role specifically is through this agent or through this prompt. And so yes, its job is to answer questions, but it is also to collect information and to schedule appointments when necessary. We'll get into some of the data collection and the scheduling guidelines deeper inside of the prompt, but for now we can be a little bit more broad and just telling it what its overarching roles are or objectives are through this system. Next thing is, we are telling it what to do when it has the answers. We also want to tell it what to do when it does not have the answers. This typically looks a little different for each business. Some businesses will prefer the agent not to respond because we don't want to have it what's called hallucinate, where it just makes up information. Some businesses will want it to trigger a handoff to a person so that we can let them know, hey Drew, somebody is in the chat, they're asking a question, the agent doesn't have the answer, but they may be a potential client, they may be a potential sale, so we want to provide as much attention as we can. So you can handle this differently. I'm going to leave it as is for the purposes of this video, but that is something that you can and should edit as a part of each prompt. The next sentence here is about the answers, the length of those answers. Currently it says as concise as possible. Concise is a little objective. My concise is typically 2 to 3 sentences. Other people's concise might be a paragraph worth of text. So my recommendation here would be to give it an exact or a maximum threshold. In this case, I am going to tell it that all answers should be a maximum of 30 words. This prevents the agent from making up information, from filling in sentences with unnecessary language, and really just keeping it short and to the point, which is the ultimate goal. We want to get the users or the people asking the questions the information as fast as possible. Next sentence here is about avoiding questions that are not relevant to the business. You will get people that come in, realize it's AI, want to test the agent. They'll ask it the color of the sky or how to bake cookies or anything else in between. And we want to make sure that the agent's job is to bring them back to only answer questions that are relevant to the business, because that is the only thing that really matters here. They're on your website for a reason. They're engaging with your agent for a reason. Let's help them get information or do whatever they would like to do while they're here. Last part of the basic instructions here is speaking to the user in the language they speak to you in. We're located in the States, but I am in South Florida, so there is a lot of Spanish that gets spoken here, and in other countries I know English is not necessarily the first language, so we want to make sure that the agent responds in any language that it is spoken to. In this example, if the person asks a question in English, it'll respond in English. If the person asks a question in Spanish, it'll respond in Spanish. That is the goal here, to be able to get the most comfortable, the most direct with the agent, and that is one of the best ways to humanize it across the board. Data collection guidelines and lead collection instructions. This is something that we will come back to. We're going to go through some of the other tabs first, the leads tab and the scheduling tab, to make sure that the agent is collecting the information that we want it to, and then it is also sending that information to the correct user after it has collected that information. So we'll come back to this here, but other than that, we have given it information about who it is, what tonality it should be taking on, what role it is, and then some more specifics about how it should respond to those users. Moving down to some of these other settings, the conversation starters or suggested messages. If you've ever seen a chat agent with clickable bubbles, this is what those conversation starters are. So you can go ahead and enter those in here. The initial message, this is the very first message that somebody would see when they interact with the AI agent. And so typically what this looks like is, welcome to East Coffee. How can I help you? And then that way that allows the user to tell us what they want and have the agent respond accordingly. Some of these other tabs here are for debugging or troubleshooting purposes. The show data sources and the debug mode tab help us and you debug exactly what's happening with the agent and how we can resolve any issues that do come across. Enabling audio features allows you to have the agent so that you can talk to it and it can also talk back. That could be something that I do recommend, and especially as voice becomes a larger part of the platform, this will continue to get better. Vision features allows the user to upload files into the chat window. This can be useful in certain scenarios. For this one, it is not super relevant. It is also very costly to upload and analyze files, so that's just a word of caution there. Lastly, to enable streaming, this is how we get the fastest responses when we're creating agents. So I would highly recommend leaving this on to make it seem like it is a person behind the scenes that's actually answering those questions. We're going to go ahead and create the agent. Now we'll go into the knowledge base tab. There are a variety of ways to get information into the knowledge base. I am going to talk about two of the most used ways here. One of them is uploading a file into the knowledge base, and then a second is scraping a website. I have this document here that is all about some of their info, Wi-Fi, parking, specials, menu items, pets, things like that that'll be relevant that people will ask. And so I'm going to go ahead and download it as a PDF, and then we will go ahead and upload this file into the system. You can see that it is super quick. You will have to make sure that you train the chat agent after you upload the information. That is a crucial piece, otherwise the agent will not know. What you should see here is this green flag that says the training job has finished and that it may take a few minutes to reflect. So in a couple of minutes we'll come back here. This should be a green trained button. For now, we'll go ahead and move over to the website. And so I have their website here that I am going to copy and paste into the website URL. I am only going to have it scrape 10 URLs because the website is pretty small, but there are some other options that I do want to talk through to make sure that are clear as a part of when you're scraping information. Piece number one here is not all websites are created equally to be scraped. An example of this is websites that are very text heavy. Those websites are very friendly to scrapers like this, and that's not only ours but other platforms as well. If you are scraping a e-commerce website or a real estate website that is very image or video or media heavy, those websites are not typically super friendly to be scraped because the information is actually being held elsewhere. So if you run into any issues, please reach out to us and let us know, and we'll give you the best method of how to move forward from there. Some of the basic options that are available here: if you check the scrape only the entered URL, that means it will only scrape this page. It will not scrape all of the pages of that website. Auto scrape daily, you can scrape the entire website every 24 hours for new information. This is not typically recommended for your local businesses, coffee shops, roofing companies, things like that. This would be recommended for larger use cases. E-commerce is pretty popular here. Even some news websites are popular here. This does take a lot of information in the back end, so be crucial and critical of what's happening with the auto scrape, as not all information that is being put into the knowledge base might be relevant to the answers that people are asking. This option here, ignoring the headers, this is for some of the non-relevant information. So an example of this is the button text. The order online button text really holds no value as a part of the knowledge base, and so when we're ignoring certain information that doesn't provide a ton of value, we're saving storage space and saving on storage cost. So that would be something I'd recommend. Extracting main content only, this is kind of the same thing here. We don't want to extract information that isn't relevant. We only want to extract the most valuable information so that it doesn't crowd our knowledge base with unrelevant information. Lastly is the advanced scraper. So for those websites that I mentioned earlier that are a little bit more difficult to scrape, or they have blocking technology behind them, our advanced scraper typically can get around some of these things. Now, it is not 100% foolproof. So if you have a website that is e-commerce, news website, real estate listing site, it's not guaranteed that the advanced scraper will work, but it is an option that you have available to you. I'm going to go ahead and scrape this, and so you'll see that the scraping found 6 URLs and it was able to scrape a few. In the next tab here, what we're going to do is we're going to run through the different information that is available. And so for these different URLs, I am going to click on the home page. I'm going to click on the About Us page, the Promotions page. Those pages are likely going to be relevant for the clients that are asking questions. Privacy policy in terms of service are pages that I could train, but nobody is coming to an agent asking about the privacy policy of a coffee shop. It's just not very likely. And so for that reason, I am going to leave it unchecked. Same thing here is that you will see the website scrape take a few moments to do this, and so in a few minutes we should come back and see that everything has been completely trained. As it is with the files here, as the flag said, it does take a few minutes in order to train. We now see this information being a part of the information that the knowledge base knows. That is everything for the knowledge base section here. I am next going to move into the leads tab. The leads tab allows us to define when we are collecting information from the user within the conversation. So what this means is if you want the agent to ask for information such as their name, their phone number, their email, and maybe some other information you might want to collect, this is exactly where we do this. And so in this example, I am going to put in their name as well as their phone number. All data types that you will put in here will be the string, so you can go ahead and select that. There are a couple other options, but for the most part they are not super relevant. So name and phone number in here, go ahead and click the green check mark. This tells the backend system that we want to collect the name and the phone number from this conversation during the conversation. If we scroll down, now what we are going to do is we're going to go back into the prompt. So we're going to copy this information here that is in gray. This tells the system when we've collected this information, name and phone number, we are going to call this function, which can send the information we've collected to the client either via email or webhook, which I'll come back to here in just a moment. Going back to the prompt, now in the data collection guidelines, we can kind of take a quick run through this. This is going to give us some information as to how exactly the information should be collected. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. I am going to remove the slashes here. This tells us the information that we want to collect. So we're going to go ahead and copy over exactly what we got from the leads tab. This information says that we're going to notify the client after we've collected the information. I'll go back to the leads tab in just a moment. One thing that I like to do as a part of each agent that I build is define when the agent should begin collecting information. For some companies, roofing, landscaping, real estate, you want to be a little bit more aggressive and collect information as soon as possible. With companies like coffee shops, restaurants, where you're building the loyalty program, you want to make sure that you provide answers to the client's questions first before we begin collecting information. And so I'm going to tell the agent exactly that. I'm going to say after you answer the user's first query, begin collecting lead information, letting them know you have a loyalty program designed to help them get more free coffee. So what I'm doing here is I'm telling the agent to frame it in a way that is about their loyalty program. So when somebody says, do you have parking? And we say, yes, we have a full parking lot. Would you be interested in our loyalty program? Our first visitor gets 10% off the coffee of the day, something like that. So we're going to give some more specifics as to how it should collect information. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and update the agent. We'll go back to the leads tab. So we have defined what information we are collecting. We have added to the prompt what we are to do with the information we have collected. And then here you have two options to take the information you've collected and send it out of Stammer. Option number one, which is the most popular, is the email notifications. And so I can be notified of an email here. What this is going to say is after we've collected name and phone number, this email will receive the information and it'll say, hey, your agent just collected a new lead. Here's that information. The other option we have, which is popular as well, is the webhook URL. This will send it to other CRM systems that the client works with or you work with in order to manage those leads, those emails, those phone numbers. Popular examples here are sending webhooks to Go High Level or HubSpot or Salesforce. You can also integrate it with platforms like Zapier or Make.com or N8N in order to send it to almost any CRM system in the world. I think there's over 6,000 apps that use webhook systems, so you should be able to send it to almost any system that the client works with. The way that this is done with webhooks is a little different depending on the system you work with. We have some documentation for some of those most popular systems that I listed. If you have any questions about webhooks, if your system can accept or receive webhook information and or the best way to go about this, please reach out to us so that we can help you. We are more than happy to provide information to help you do so. For this, we're going to go ahead and click on save. So now we have the lead portion of our agent set up. So we have so far covered two things. Number one is the ability to answer questions and what questions the agent can answer. Number two, the ability to collect information during the conversation, and then how we get that information from Stammer out to other systems. The next thing here is we're going to go through the scheduling system. There are a couple of options that we have here as a part of our scheduling tab. Option number one is for you to use a Google Calendar connection, and I'm going to walk through that here in just a moment. Option number two is to use other systems. Examples are Calendly, Cal.com, Go High Level, or HubSpot that have their own calendar systems. What you can do is you can provide a calendar link. And so what an example of that might look like is if you have a calendar / scheduling instructions, if and when you are ready to book an appointment, or the user says that they want to book an appointment, we can go ahead and provide them a calendar link. So it would look something like this. When the user says they're ready to book an appointment, and this can be different, right? Schedule an appointment, make a reservation, something along those lines. Provide them with this link. And then in here, you'll just paste the calendar link. So that is an option for you as well. If they use something other than Google Calendar, which is a definite possibility, we are going to be expanding our calendar options for some of those most popular services that we get asked about. In the short term, this is the best way, but you can also use Google Calendar behind the scenes. So option number one here for calendar or scheduling instructions is to provide them with the link. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the prompt for this video. Go ahead and update agent. We'll go back to the scheduling tab. I'm going to go ahead and enable the scheduling functionality. So what you'll see here is some of the most typical settings for what types of meeting, what time zone you're in. I am in Eastern time. Maybe I want this to be a 30-minute meeting. And then you have the availability, so 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can always set your own availability, time zone, and appointment duration according to what you have set. Make sure that you're always saving the weekly schedule and updating the information, as otherwise it will not save. Before I connect the Google Calendar and then we test what it actually looks and feels like, I do want to run through this information here. The same things that you saw in the Leads tab. So you have the webhook URLs that can communicate the appointment information to other CRM systems. You also have an email notification that can notify the client, hey, this person just booked a 30-minute meeting to discuss these things. Those are options for you. And then you can customize what the appointment title is as well. Last thing that I'll mention here is that appointment scheduling has its own prompt that is already built and done for you. You do not have to edit it at all. And I would highly recommend that you don't edit it unless you know what you're doing here. The reason for that is because there is some technical skill of calling functions that is required in order to get this right. We have it set up so that it does work. If you know what you're doing with custom functions, you can go ahead and edit it, but it is highly advised against. Now for here, once you press connect, it is going to take you through some of the confirmations and typical information that Google will ask for. The service that you'll see here is called AI Meeting Scheduler. You're going to go ahead and sign in, make sure you give full permissions into the account that you want to connect with. After you have done the connection, you should see this green bar that says connected and then the connected email. That is it for the scheduling functions. We should be able to now do a quick test run through of how everything actually looks, feels, and works. And then we can come back into what those conversations look like, how we embed it onto a website, how we change the appearance of what it looks like. And then I'll talk about functions briefly, but that is a more highly technical, out-of-the-box use case. First questions here, how can I help you? We know that from the website and from the file that I uploaded that most of the information is pretty basic about menu, parking, hours, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask it about an example here of Wi-Fi. It should be checking the knowledge base here, and this is exactly what we told it to do. So yes, we have Wi-Fi, just ask the person at the register. That is a perfect response. One thing you'll notice here is that you can train better responses. So let's say that this responded with, I'm not sure, maybe let's ask the person at the register. That is not necessarily the correct answer based on the information we trained it on. And so we will want to either go back into the knowledge base and figure out why the agent might be responding this way, or we can train a better response here and actually take a look at the QA pair behind the scenes. So in this example, after we ask that first question, it is going to ask us if we want to join the loyalty program. And so I'm going to say yes for this demo for here. Now this is a really great optimization that we're going to make in the prompt. It did ask us for the information we told it to, which is name and phone number, but it's asking for a name and phone number at the same time. This is not bad, but I would make an optimization here that would allow the user to only ask, or allow the agent to only ask one question at a time. So what we'll do here is, inside of the data collection instructions, we are going to instruct the agent to only ask for one piece of information at a time. This is going to tell the agent to only ask for the name and then ask for the phone number once it has those responses. So the way that we can test that is we can start a brand new chat. We can ask the same question, we can ask a different question. So I'm going to go ahead and say, can I bring my pet? And yes, they can sit on our shaded patio. So this is another optimization that we can make here. It asks for our loyalty program and then for the name right away. So what we want to do here is be a little bit more specific. So we're saying, after this, begin collecting for lead information. We're going to tell the agent to begin, we're actually going to tell the agent to ask about the loyalty program first. And so we're gonna say, ask if the user is interested in our loyalty program to help them get more free coffee. If the user says yes, then begin collecting information starting with their name, and then it should collect the rest of their information. If the user says no, ask the user how else you can help. So what I'm telling the agent here is, let's begin by asking them if they're interested in our loyalty program at all. If they say yes, then we collect their name, then we collect their phone number. If the user says no, then let's say, no problem, how else can we help you? We'll come back here, we'll go ahead and update the chat agent prompt. We're going to go back into this tab, and then we're going to go through the process again. So I am going to ask about parking. If you are familiar with South Florida, it is paid parking pretty much all the time. So one of the benefits of this coffee shop is that they actually just have a parking lot that you can pull in, which is really nice. And so we should see a response here shortly where you can pull for free. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. So it did ask about the loyalty program first and then our name. So this is exactly what we wanted to have happen. And the prompt edits that we made did in fact work the way we wanted them to. So that is great. This agent has collected all of my information, so that is a great start to this. The last thing that we're going to do here in the prompt, now that we have confirmed a part of that is working, the other part of this is when scheduling appointments. And so what we'll do here is we're going to add something about some scheduling instructions. Now in this example, the only time that people will ask for appointments is if they're doing catering and or corporate events. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instruct the agent that when somebody asks about catering orders or about corporate events, to just go ahead and book an appointment. So we'll provide some additional scheduling instructions that says, when the user asks if the shop does catering or corporate events. Tell the user yes, and that a short appointment is the best way to share the shop's pricing and information. After this, begin working to set an appointment with the user. So what I'm telling it here is tell the user the best way to move forward with a catering or corporate event is a short appointment, and then begin scheduling it. And so what should happen here is when the person asks about, do you do catering? So what should be happening here is the agent is going to ask me in my time zone, so I'm in Eastern time, and then it will continue to ask me for my information about email and everything there. Now, because I'm the same user from the previous conversation, it will likely know that my email exists already. So from my available time slots in EST, it's going to go ahead and give me the next available slots, 8:39, and then we'll go ahead and book the appointment through. So Tuesday the 4th, 9 a.m. EST, provided my email. That is all great. This appointment has been scheduled. It will appear on my calendar. It will also appear on the client's calendar or the calendar that's been connected with the agent. And if we have the appointment notification set up, so if we have the email notification set up, we would get an email that says, hey, so-and-so just booked an appointment for this time and has expressed interest in a certain thing. All of that has led us to now being able to actually review and integrate, and now that we know the agent's working, we can talk about next steps. In this conversations tab, you'll be able to see every conversation that I've had, who responded to it, and what time it was, everything there. This is something that both you and the client should be reviewing. I would recommend on a regular basis. Monthly is typically good enough, although if it is higher volume, you might want to do weekly in order to get started, but definitely something that I would pay attention to make sure that it is doing exactly what you expect it to do. And then you also have the human handoff settings that will allow you to define if the agent doesn't know the answer, or if somebody says a certain phrase like, can I talk to a human, can I talk to a person, a representative, that would allow you to get in there as a human. So if somebody says I want to talk to a person, that would allow the coffee shop owner to get in to the chat, and they could literally take over this conversation and reply on its behalf. The next tab here is the appearance, so what this actually looks like. Right now it's that blue to purple gradient. You can see the little blue chat bubble in the bottom right hand corner. And so this appearance section allows you to change the font sizing, the colors, the icons, anything and everything about what the widget actually looks like on a website. The size of the overall site, the icons, anything that you need should be able to be in here. We are currently going through a redesign with this section in particular, so you will have more options in the future, but for right now there's still a lot of customization that is able to be done. Last but not least is the integrations. So I will show you how we can integrate this into a backend of a website and what it looks like on the front end. There really are a couple of options here. You have embedding the chat agent on a website. And so what you'll do here is you'll get this embed code and you'll be able to copy and paste it onto your site. As a reminder, if you are on your white label side of the platform, this will not say stammer.ai, it will say your business name. And that is what I would recommend, is getting embed codes or anything a client might see from your white label side, not from the Stammer side. You have some more options in order to figure out what side the bubble is on, or if it pops up on certain devices, what pops up, if it's the initial message, if it's the whole widget. and then what timing. So this is in the number of seconds. Right now, the negative means that the bubble will not pop up. If I were to change it to 3 seconds, 4 seconds, that would mean after 3 or 4 seconds that it would pop up. You have both desktop and mobile settings so that you can edit that. Meta integrations here, the biggest thing that you'll need is credentials from your clients. So you'll need access to the backend of their Meta Business Suite, and that will allow you to connect it. Or you can give the client permission to be able to come in here and do this themselves. I would highly recommend, if you are giving them permission to be on Zoom or something with them and walk them through the steps, that is going to be much easier and faster than them trying to do it themselves, unless they are fairly tech savvy and are comfortable with the system. Before we jump into the analytics, one thing I do want to show you guys real quick is how easy it is to embed an agent inside of a website. So I am going to go into my white label settings where it's my domain here. I'm going to get the embed code for the agent I created. You'll notice that the embed code is white labeled as well, so it has my domain and branding behind it. I'm going to click the copy button here. I'm going to go into the back end of my site, and so this is an example page that I have here with Go High Level. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the body tracking code here. I'll go ahead and click save. Once it saves, now I should be able to go into the homepage, and you'll see it in the bottom right hand corner. Once you make all the adjustments to the appearance and everything, the pop-up settings, all of that, you'll be able to see what that looks like in the back end as well. But very simple to copy and paste that embed code. You do not need to know how to code whatsoever to get it in the back end of your site. Every site and their platform is a little different. That's okay. We have documentation for the most popular platforms that people use. If you do not find documentation, you can either reach out and ask us. We'll provide what we can. ChatGPT is always another popular source that most people use as well. Last but not least, here is the analytics, and so you'll be able to see what exactly happened day by day, week by week, where messages and agents are being used, if they're being used across multiple channels. So you'll see that so far in the agent we've created today, 4 conversations, 12 responses. We did get 1 lead capture, 1 appointment scheduled. That can all be exported into data that you can then send over to your clients. There is also some summary settings that you could send over. So if you wanted the client to get a summary of each conversation or make sure that they have the lead data after the conversation is over, you can turn all of these settings on as well. Same things you saw on the other page. You can send an email with this information, or you can send a webhook to their CRM with this information. That is everything for the coffee shop's chat agent. I will be doing more of these for other companies. If you have any other suggestions, please let me know. Thanks.